Alright, so now this is program number 6 of week 9. This is where we start to get actually really useful with our code, because we're going to start now returning values back from the methods that we write. So on our screen here we can show the general form of how this works. So the general form is static, and then the return type, so the variable type that you're going to return back, the method name, and then the list of parameters that are going to the method. I'll show you this better in the example we're going to do, but at the end of your method you're going to type the word return and then the actual variable name that you're going to be sending the data back on. I'll demonstrate that in just a minute. So an example here, if you want to multiply two numbers together, this is what we're actually going to do in our example. If the form was a long, you would type in static long. Multiply would be the name of your method. Bring in two integers. You're going to call them number 1 and number 2 to use internally in the method. And then you're going to say that a variable called result, which is the type long, is equal to number 1 multiplied by number 2, and then you're going to return that value of result back to where it came from. So there's an example here of what our code could look like. Once again, I'm going to write it differently because I'm going to do some other stuff with this as well. So this is my program, what it looks like. So you can see 1, 2, 3 lines of code only to do this, because all I have here, I just have 3 calls to methods. That's all I have in my main program. So they're showing it basically with this one. I'm adding in method calls to get the data from the user, because whenever we write this in every program we've been doing so far, and it takes 2 lines of code to write it, and it's always the same. And I thought, why not just create a method to do that, because that's the whole purpose of methods, is to be able to execute things in less space and less effort. So let's create a method to do that function for us as well. So I created one that I called getDouble, and that is basically going to send a message to the screen and then get the data that comes back when the user types it in and convert that from a string to a double and bring that back to us. So let's look at how that works. So I'm basically defining the variable double. So num1 is a double, and that is equal to method getDouble, which has a string parameter in it that says enter a number. So basically what I'm setting up here is a method where you need to enter a string. This is basically the message you want to have show up on the screen. So you're going to put that in here, and then the result you're going to get back is going to be the data that the user enters in. So when we execute this, we jump down to the method down here, and what happens down here, you can see this now says static double, and then so this is static double is the type of variable that's going to be returned from this. GetDouble is the method name. It is going to be looking for a string to come into it. That string, I'm going to use this internally as the variable message, and then this is the code that I'm going to execute. So I'm going to say console write line message. So whatever comes in as that string variable coming in, so whatever you keyed in that method up top here, so basically enter a number, that's what I get in here. So this is basically going to say console write line enter a number. So you'll get that up on the screen. That's basically what we were typing in before. And then I get double data is equal to double parse console read line. That was basically always the second line we would key in. And then what I'm doing is saying return data. So basically whatever this is, I'm going to return that out of this method back up into my main program. So I'm returning a double. That is going to be this value here. So that comes back up, and that is going to populate the variable num1. Okay, so that is basically the same as when we were used to write console write line, enter a number, and then double num1 is equal to double parse console read line. Okay, all that together is basically being done by this now, except I don't need to type all that stuff in each time. I can just type in get double, put in my message information here in quotation marks, and it will execute all that for me, and then tell it what variable I want to populate that into. Okay, so that is really the benefit of using methods, is you can, instead of writing a bunch of code, you can write a bunch of code once and then just keep calling it every time you want to use it. So that is, we're going to call that one twice to get our data, and we're going to call another one here called do math. We're going to send it two variables, which is basically number 1, number 2. I'm going to get down here, I get my do math. I'm going to return a double. So I get down here doubles, which I'm going to call A and B once I get them. And then I'm going to say C is equal to A multiplied by B. I'm going to return C, which is a double. So that double that comes back, I'm going to put into my variable called result. And I'm actually not outputting my result. I need to add one more line in here. This is num1, num2, result. If we watch this run, so we should get enter a number 3, enter a second number 5. The result of 3 times 5 is 15. Okay, so that is an example there of setting up methods and then sending data to them, processing that data within the method, and then returning values back from the method and then using it in your program, in the main part of your program. Okay, and that is the beauty of using methods. Okay, trying to reduce the total complexity of our program, because when we look at this program, this is now only a couple lines long. And then if you want to get into what all these methods actually are doing, you can open up each individual method and look at them. But if you're using the same chunk of code over and over again, you only need to write it once and then just call it multiple times. Okay, so that is using methods, returning values from them.